Today we're going to talk about why Paraguay doesn't work as an EU digital nomad. This is if you're European or if you spend a lot of time in Europe. So the idea around Paraguay is that it has a territorial taxation system. If you're watching this video, you probably know, which means you're only taxed on the money you source locally from Paraguay, which is basically clients in Paraguay, or if you're actually running operations from Paraguay. Now, as a digital nomad, online entrepreneur, this never really happens, right? So the reason why Paraguay is so great, supposedly, is that combined with this LLC, the LLC pays no corporation tax in the US, and then when you take out the money, you also don't pay tax because Paraguay has this territorial system. So out of the £1,000 or euros that comes in, you pay no corporation tax, and then when you take it out, you pay no income tax. So basically, there's no tax. Now, how do you become a Paraguayan tax resident? You get a temporary residency. So this cedula thing, you apply for a tax ID and you file monthly VAT declarations. And this is enough on the Paraguayan tax law to become a tax resident, which is why everyone is so in hype for this Paraguay thing, right? Because there's no physical presence required. You're like, okay, great. I can just go to Paraguay once a year, do these VAT filings that are nil returns every month, and then I'll get my tax residency in Paraguay. And, you know, happy days. That's where I pay taxes. Now, in theory, yeah, cool. In practice, why does it not work for people traveling in the EU? And the very simple answer is because European countries attribute taxing rights. What does this mean? Let's go for example number one, okay? Let's say you spend 90 days in Italy, 90 days in Spain, 90 days in Brazil, 95 days in France. Now, the total time spent in Europe is 275 days. Europe is kind of like its own country for tax purposes. It's not, but it also is, in the sense that, let's assume you're an Italian citizen, you know, probably, or Spanish or French, you know, you're going to be spending, I assume, if you're in Europe and you're spending 90 days in every country, you're probably going to be spending a good chunk of time in the country where you're actually, you know, where your family's from, where you're originally from. So let's say you're Italian and you spend 90 days in Italy. Now, you'll be thinking, I've only spent 90 days in Italy, but because you go to Spain, you go to France, these countries are in Europe. If you were to be audited, these countries actually cooperate to attribute taxing rights. So it's not as if, you know, for Italy, you're like, oh, I've only spent 90 days in Italy, I've only spent 90 days in Spain, I've only spent 90 days in France. No, they'll look at it together and they'll be like, this guy has spent 275 days in our countries. So who is going to tax this guy? Who of us taxes him, right? It might be one country, it might be two countries, it might be all countries, but in practice, it's going to be the country that you hold the passport for, right? So if you're an Italian and you spend 90 days in Italy, Spain and France, you're probably going to be paying taxes in Italy, right, on your worldwide income. Now, if you look at option number two, example number two, if you're actually traveling outside of Europe, so these 90 days are split between, you know, Italy and France and Spain or whatever, right? If it's 90 days, if it's, you know, 4 months, let's say, and the rest is Thailand, Brazil, South Africa, right? South America, Southeast Asia, Bali, wherever. You only spend 90 days in Europe. So the other countries don't actually share the information with Italy, or, you know, even if they do, it's not as if they're within the European Union, right? So it's a completely different country. So you've only spent 90 days in Italy, you've only spent 90 days in Europe, but because the other countries are outside of Europe, those don't actually count towards the days in, you know, in Italy for your tax residency, which of course they wouldn't. But because Europe is such a weird concept, like if you think about it, it's like its own country, like there's no borders. You know, you can travel on a car from Italy to France. Like if you travel by car from Italy to France, and you spend 3 months in France and then you go back, like it's even hard to prove that you were in France. Like I guess there's bank statements, but like Italy doesn't know that you've, you know, you've gone to France if you've just taken the car and drove all the way to France. Which is why if you spend, you know, most of your time in Europe, like if you're a digital nomad hopping from country to country, then Paraguay doesn't work because, again, if you're audited, it doesn't work, right? So example on the left, super dangerous. If you're audited, you're going to pay tax. Example on the right can work. Now, it still might not work for European citizens, even if we go on the option on the right. And this is because requirement, you know, number one, you've probably heard of it, is the 183 days test. If you spend more than 183 days in one country, you're a tax resident, okay? Everyone knows this, it's true. But requirement number two is if you spend less than these 183 days, it actually depends if you're tax resident or not. It's not like automatically, oh, I'm not a tax resident if I spend less than 6 months. Like, no, it actually depends. And it depends on all these things. And these are requirements that are very broad, like your center of economic interest, your habitual abode, your domicile. It's like, how do you prove that? That's like very hard. And you watching this, like, you're probably making some good money, but you don't really own a house. You know, you have your parents' house back home. That can also be considered a habitual abode, like if you're not careful. So basically, you just need to try and cut all your ties. Like if you're still using your home country's bank account, if you're still spending like 4 or 5 months in your home country, if you own stuff in your home country, Paraguay still won't work, because effectively you're not really spending any time in Paraguay. So like the European country will look at it and be like, okay, yeah, you've only spent 3 days here and you spent 5 months with us. You're actually still using our bank account. Your family is still here. You've got a house that you can come back to whenever you want. Like, we want to tax you. And they will. And they will. So key points. You can do whatever you want until you're challenged. Like maybe you've spoken to someone who's like, oh, Paraguay, I will set up in Paraguay and not pay tax and you can travel the world. If no one questions your tax setup, then by default, you're okay. Just because no one has come after you right now doesn't mean you're going to be fine. Like, this is what I need you to get through your head. Because right now you're like, oh, this guy has set me up with an LLC in Europe. Maybe he's not even giving you Paraguayan tax resident. You're like, oh, you can be a tax resident of nowhere and just, you know, use your LLC. Like, no, that's bullshit. Because like in 2 and 3 years, they'll ask you questions. Like they can ask you questions up to 5 years back. They'll ask you, for this 2025 year, like, where did you pay your taxes? And you're like, Paraguay. And they're like, oh, okay, show me the proof that you're a tax resident in Paraguay. Like, didn't you spend all this time in Europe? And then when you are challenged, they will actually catch on and it won't work. But you might not find out that it doesn't work until you're actually audited, and then you have to pay a lot of tax. So obviously, if no one questions the setup, by default, you're okay. But we're actually trying to build something that would hold, even if a tax officer looked at it, right? And that's the point. Because of course, if no one sees it, then we can just like evade and not pay any tax. Like, why do we even need a tax residency? But we are trying to build something, again, that would hold and would be legal, even if a tax officer looked at it. Our goal is to have tax officers be able to look at it and say, yes, this guy's paying his tax. He doesn't owe us anything. What are the other options? In the EU, Cyprus is very expensive, but if you like this digital nomad lifestyle in Cyprus, you only need to spend 60 days over there. You need to rent a place for 12 months, which again is quite spenny, but it's a European country. The tax resident program under the non-dom is recognized by other European countries. If you're a tax resident of Cyprus and you're traveling around Europe, like, that's completely fine. Cyprus is recognized. The 60-day rule in Cyprus is recognized, obviously provided you don't spend 6 months, over 6 months in another country. And it's 12.5% taxation just one time. That's it. Or you just pay your taxes. Like, look, we're not supposed to be paying 0% tax. A lot of people just want to pay 0% tax and be where they want. Like, you can't do it. It's very niche aspects. Like, a lot of people promote it. They play on your emotions. They try and sell you, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want and you can pay 0% tax. Like, no, it's not the case. And look, maybe it's working for now, like, but just because you're not paying taxes now doesn't mean it's working. If in 5 years time, then no one's come after you, then it has worked, evidently. But the other thing is, just like follow the rules. If there are options to pay 0% tax or to like lower your tax, take them. But in Europe, it's very, very, very rare if you want to spend time in Europe to be able to pay 0% tax. If you're spending a lot of time in Europe, use Cyprus, go with Cyprus. If you're not spending a lot of time in Europe, then Paraguay can work. Again, be careful about the banking. Don't use your banking back home. Like, don't be careful to not own any house, any property back in your home country, and you'll be fine. If you want to schedule a call with me to talk about your specific situation one-on-one, you can schedule a consultation call with the second link in the description, one-on-one, or you can click the first link in the description that says 0% tax masterclass. That is completely free, and I basically tell you everything you need to know about taxation as an online entrepreneur living abroad. Thanks for watching.